with all our shows by visiting our YouTube channel or by listening back at ttradio.org. Don't forget to like and subscribe to enjoy more live education conversation from TTR. We hope you enjoy this show.
Outstanding, a world-class vision, a world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.
Hi everyone, you're tuned in to The Late Late Show with me, Seema Agarwal. I've got Claire here today. Hi Claire.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. I'm good.
Good. So Claire's my colleague. We work together, and I think actually, Claire, did you start before me?
Do you know what? I don't know. I think I did start before you, but not much.
Yeah, I feel like we've been there for quite a similar amount of time.
I don't remember life before you.
Oh, well, that's a good thing, isn't it? That's what most people say. Yeah. So we've had some interesting experiences together. That sounds really weird. We've had some really. Yeah, we have had some interesting experience, haven't we, over the years?
Definitely.
And I think one of the things that we're talking about today is definitely something that the reason I got you on the show actually is because you came to mind when this topic came up, because I remember a meeting that we were in, but we'll come on to that anyway. It's the 1st of September. So that means everything's going to be starting back soon.
Yeah, I think my first,
isn't it?
Yeah, we've got about 2 or 3 weeks left before we're back in. Or I say back in before we're teaching.
Yeah. We usually start towards the end of September, don't we?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
A few weeks. But yeah, are you looking forward to being back in person teaching?
I really like, do you know what? I really like the holidays, and I become like a different person. Like I don't even think about my job, and I completely disassociate from it. So then I'm thinking, oh my God, you're joking. I've got to go back and do that. How am I going to do it? I can't even remember anything that I taught last year. I can't remember what I prepped. But then you get there and then it just clicks in and you go, oh yeah, this is me doing this thing that I know how to do. But I'm so like, because our summer break is so long, I am like just completely like, I often can't remember how to like log into Moodle or find anything.
Yeah, I know what you mean about disassociating. I think I do that too.
Yeah.
And I think you need to. I think you need to. I think I only realized when I started teaching how much you need the long break. You know, like it used to be a joke about how, oh, you guys get so much time off and like, but then once you teach, you kind of realize why. And
it's so intense.
It is so intense. And I think I like that mental break.
Yeah. Well, I said like when we were like obviously like harping back to COVID days and I said I worked it out and I was like, guys, I literally see 300 different people every week, like across first year, second year, third year, and MAs. And well, when we like people were talking about, oh my God, I get worried about the supermarket. I'm like, you're joking. I'm with 300, and that is just it's just intense. Because
do you remember people's names on that note?
Only certain people. Like, we've got a colleague, Steve Spence, and he, within the first week, knows all the year one's names, like 60 people. He knows all of their names.
That's amazing, though. That's such a practice. But then, and also, what do you do when you get to like I don't know, 3/4 of the way through the year, and a student's talking to you and you don't know their name. Like, it's too late in the year to ask them, isn't
It
it?
is. So that's when I get George, the admin guy, to send me all the photos.
Pictures. Yeah, that's what I have to do as well. And
Yeah.
I'll be like,
But they look nothing like the photos.
yeah, I don't know if this happens to you, but I even have, this is really awful to admit, but I've got some students that graduate. So I've taught them for 3 years.
Yeah.
I can't remember like everyone's names. This sounds so bad, but like they'll email me and ask for a reference and I can't remember what they look like. I don't know who it is.
I know, you have to go back and look at their work and then go,
Yeah,
oh,
like
right.
find the photo from that year.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, this person. Otherwise, I can give them like a real reference.
I think for me, like there'll be, I reckon I know half of the names.
Yeah.
Some of them I know for good reasons and some I know for bad.
Yeah. I do that thing as well where I try to address them by their names, like probably a bit too much, a bit too weirdly, but
same.
it just helps me to remember because I just keep saying their name and then I'm like, yeah. But then I do wonder if then some of the people in the class feel like
left out because they're
like,
you know,
do you know my name?
Exactly.
I should probably do a show on names, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Good topic.
My dad used to be a salesman and he was very much like, hello, John. Like, you know, he would emphasize the names. And I feel like I do that sometimes as well. I'll go, and over to you, Natasha. And then, like you say, then the next person you think, oh, I don't know what their name is. And then you're like, and the next group.
Because the thing is, I think at the beginning of the year, you can get away with like making little jokes about it or being like, oh, the person in the blue top, what's their name again? But then you can't do that, after a certain point. It just,
it's rude.
Yeah. And it gets a little awkward. But at the same time, I don't know. My memory's like a fish nowadays. And then on top of that, to remember that many names. Although I was thinking that I should try to do it as part of like brain training or something.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking, like, how can I sharpen
that's
brain?
literally how Steve Spence does it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think he's probably in the habit of it, isn't he?
Yeah. It's crazy how quickly he learns them.
That's really impressive, actually.
Yeah. And then can remember them years later, because I'm the same. I'll get a reference and I'll be like, Spence, I don't know who this is. And he goes, yeah, you do. The girl with the orange hair who had the tattoo on her or whatever. And I was like, oh,
yeah, I know. Like the actual references that we make up to remind each other of who students are.
Yeah, it'll be like, the one whose dad's a cab driver.
Oh, God. So before we actually move on to talking about, I've forgotten what this show's meant to be about now.
Well, it's about
talking of memory,
repetition.
I'm actually having brain freeze. Repetition, that's it. So before we move on to talk about that, let's also just acknowledge that this show is brought to you in partnership with Hatchet Learning, who are publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. So if you want to level up your professional development, you can go on to hatchetlearning.com and have a look at their full range of titles. Also, an important announcement: if you're a teacher of history, geography, or RS, then you should definitely get yourself along to Manchester on Saturday, the 20th of September for TTR Humanities, which is a day of CPD and networking brought to you for free. So you can get your tickets on the pinned post on the TTRX account, or you can go onto the website, which is ttrradio.org/events. So back to our topic, repetition. So the reason I thought of talking about this is because I remember a few years ago, we were discussing the NSS scores and feedback at work.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember this meeting. I remember you being there. but we were told that, you know, students had complained that there was too much repetition on the course. And so we were doing this thing where we all sat down and we looked at all the units across all the years. And the whole point of the exercise was to try and see where there was overlap and repetition and to take it out. And I remember me and you sitting in the meeting and saying, okay, cool, but do we think that it's important to actually have some things more than once? Because the repetition is part of how they learn. And there's certain things that we have on the course which, you know, they do over and over again, but they kind of need to in order to create, you know, produce good creative work. So do you remember that meeting? It was a few years ago.
I think that was the beginning of what ended up being quite a dark period on the course, like, because they wanted to remove all the repetition. And actually, like, I think that they weren't completely successful in doing that, interestingly. And because I worked across a couple of units, one for year 2 and one for year 3, which were both employability units, and there was so much repetition in the curriculum, but not in a good way. You know, it really was the sort of stuff that as a student I would say, what the hell is this? We did this last year. And you know, it was like, you know, have a LinkedIn account. All stuff that's so easy for the students to do, not challenging at all. So it was such a strange exercise. And I remember another meeting, maybe it was prior to that, where I think a student had said something like, oh, we did that in year 1. And I was like, so what? You know, and it was about gathering research. And I think, do you remember? I'm sure we talked about it. And I said, it's so laughable that you think that you could, you know, learn how to gather valuable research just once. And then go, okay, I can do it now.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, true. And it's like, go on.
No, I do think that, I don't know if it's all universities, but certainly I think the university that we work for, well, I'll tell you what a friend of mine said, who she teaches at a different university, and she also teaches where we work sometimes. And she said, if a student put in NSS that they needed more toilets, they've been looking in classrooms to build more toilets. I thought that was really funny and so well observed.
Yeah.
Because it seems like, you know, you get comments about repetition, and the desire is to fix that for the student immediately by removing repetition, rather than actually going, well, where is repetition useful? And actually, we need to say to the students, this is the reason why we go over this over and over and over again. And I would still say that for me, the whole NSS thing, it would be more valuable to hear from students like 2-3 years into their career about what we should be teaching, or what we thought that was of value, what wasn't, rather than the student going, yeah, I didn't like that bit. Right.
There is this sort of knee-jerk reaction that happens, isn't there, when the NSS feedback comes out? And I completely agree that it should be the starting point of a discussion with the students.
Yeah.
It should be a place where we have a chat with them about why we do certain things and why we make certain decisions, and then get their input onto that, right?
Yeah.
So that they also feel like they actually have been heard. Because I think sometimes we make these changes, but half of them don't really understand what's going on or why it's happening.
Yeah, that's so true. And they'll make these huge changes, and students that haven't had anything to do with it, well, none of them have anything to do with it, and they don't know why. I think, but it's that fine line, isn't it, between getting an input, and then sometimes you have students who, and you might just have one who's super vocal and super complaining about everything, and actually they're never going to be satisfied. And it's in some ways that sometimes you kind of need to say to them, there is a reason behind this, there's a process, and we're asking you to trust the process.
Yeah.
It will all become clear 2 years down the road.
Yeah, because I think if we aren't having that conversation with them, then we're not sort of rightfully in a place where we're teaching.
No, absolutely.
And I'm all for, you know, input, and let's make this a two-way conversation. I think that's really, really important. But I don't think that means let's do everything that they say we should.
Yeah. Yeah,
because they haven't got the experience or the benefit of hindsight to understand why we've made certain decisions.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to be able to back up our decisions and stick to them sometimes, not all the time.
Yeah, not all the time. And sometimes it would be, you know, to our advantage to listen and make changes, but other times you have to be firm with it. But for me, like some of the times when they do the surveys, and it's not just the NAS, it's like unit surveys, the students have had enough of them and they're always being asked. But sometimes I feel like it's like, imagine if you're getting your hair cut and you were like halfway through the haircut and the hairdresser said, so what do you think? You're like, well, I'm a bit worried. It currently looks terrible.
Yeah.
I'm worried about what you're going to do with it. You know, so like there are times to ask and there are times not to ask.
Yeah, I think that's a very good analogy as well, because you haven't had time to see through the benefit of what we're actually trying to do here. Of course, if you see a half cut, you're going to be like, well, this is awful. This is all bad. Okay. I mean, I remember on one of the units I was teaching, we used to do Vox Pops. I think me and you have spoken about this before. I feel like we must have. And we'd get the students to go out, and like every year the same thing happened. It didn't matter how much we gave them guidance or saw how it happened one year and then tried to make adjustments the next year. Every time people went out and did it the first time, like probably 6 or 7 out of the 10 groups, for example, would totally mess it up, right? And they'd come back and we'd all have a laugh about it. We'd watch it, have a laugh, and then we'd feedback, and they had all this great feedback. But then if they don't go and do it again, what's the point?
No, exactly. What is the point in the feedback if you don't try and action that feedback?
Exactly. Because I think, especially with something like that, which is a very practical task, you can't remember it just by going, oh, okay, yeah, I'll use that in 6 years when I do it in industry. That's not going to work.
No.
So
am I allowed to swear on this, Seema?
No, I'm afraid I don't think you can. I haven't actually rules around that, but I think let's go on the side of no.
Yeah. I'm glad you asked. No, I'm glad I asked. Well, because I was thinking about this, you know, like when you asked me to do this, and I was thinking about, like, I feel really strongly about how important repetition is in the right places for the right things. But I thought, like, if you were, you know, if you went to college to learn to be a plumber, for instance, I literally know nothing about plumbing, so this is such a bad example. And they said, here's how you take a plug off a what's-it. And then they did it once and they went, right, I'm moving on to electrics. You just wouldn't, because you'd get the students to do it over and over again so that they were competent, that then when they started working, they could turn up to someone's house and take a what's-it off a plug. And for me, especially with I can only speak to the creative side of it. But if students don't do this over and over and over again, they won't be good at it.
Yeah. So that actually bring some context here. So we actually teach on a course that is predominantly creative, and for, I'd say, probably 8 out of 10 of our students are more creatively inclined than strategically inclined. So I think in this context, that repetition makes sense. Do you think it makes sense in other contexts, though? Because if I look at the strategy side, I would say it's still quite important. I don't think I would say to them, okay, here's how to do it, and then just expect that now they're going to be able to do it. I think repetition with a bit of variation is important. So, for example, I'd give them lots of different briefs.
Yes,
and say, okay, now do the same thing with this brief. Now do the same thing with this brief. But ultimately, it is still repetition.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's repetition. You just obviously not given them the same brief over and over again, because that would be really depressing. But I don't know, like I did wonder, and I sort of thought maybe you would know, but whether in an academic context, whether like, I mean, I think that our dean, or one of our deans, is feels that you should teach something well, but teach something once.
I think it depends, doesn't it? Like, what's the purpose of the degree? Like, are we trying to give them exposure to as many topics as possible and then say, right, that's the basics of everything, now go off and practice it in your own time, or learn the skill of it in your own time? Or are we trying to train them on how to be good at something? Because I feel like they're two different objectives.
They are completely.
Yeah.
But for me, the first one that you said feels like the sort of thing you do if you were going to do an MA, that you'd spend 3 years touching on loads of different things, and then you would then do an MA on one thing, which you would use repetition for to get good at. But our students that are doing the BA, for me, I think they're doing this because they want a job. They're not choosing advertising because they want to, be chin scratching philosophers.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that as well as you were talking, that like maybe because we both come from industry, we're very focused on, but this is what you would need if you were doing a job. But I wonder if you were purely studying for academic purposes and you just wanted to, let's say you wanted to go on and do a master's and a PhD, and then you wanted to become an academic, then maybe in that context, just the exposure once is okay because it's not a practical skill. Don't know. But then on a degree like ours, then I go back to what is our degree, and it is a creative degree. A lot of people do go on and work in the industry. Even if they don't, the practical skills are still going to be useful for them, whatever career they go into.
Completely. And I see that just recently a couple of our ex-students have launched clothing brands, and it's also kind of like streetwear, and one of them's quite political, really nice, like really clever, nice stuff. And I look at what they're doing and I think they're doing the stuff, they're using the skills that we taught them, which came from repetition. And they're sitting in a really comfortable place because they've done it over and over again while they were at college. And it's not strictly what we taught them, but it uses the skills that we taught them.
See, that's interesting, like what you say about it not being strictly what we taught them, because I used to be an athlete, and my coach used to say to me, when you go and look at the boxers in Cuba, their coaches would spend a year with them just on the jab, and then they'd move on to the next punch, right? And that's why a lot of the best boxers come from Cuba, because they were patient and they trained over and over and over again. And there's this element of learning the fundamentals really well.
Yeah.
And once you learn the fundamentals, then you can go off and you can make it your own. You can
Completely.
break the fundamentals, right?
Right.
Deliberately. But you can't break them until you establish them.
No.
And so I think what you just said there is really interesting, because for students to go off and make it their own, they've
Yeah.
got to have like a really good grip of the basics.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. And I think if those students in Cuba were allowed to sort of control what they were being taught, they would go, I'm bored of doing the jab.
Yeah.
Can we move on to this? And actually, in that instance, maybe they aren't the best person to decide.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, I think that so someone's asked me to do a chat with them, I guess, for their research, and it's about storytelling for purpose. And I just today read their questions, which are all really great questions, but it's all about like, how do you teach storytelling for purpose? And actually, my answer to all the questions is the same. You teach them the fundamentals of storytelling. It's not about storytelling for purpose or with purpose. It's about storytelling. And it doesn't matter where you take that storytelling. So it doesn't matter if you teach someone good storytelling skills, they can take that anywhere about anything. But so it's not necessarily, I don't think, my job to go, okay, what's like the new emerging tech where stories might live? Yeah, I might touch on that, but the tech will not be the story. So those fundamentals, like that jab that you were talking about, it's the same. What are the fundamentals of how you come up with an idea? Like, that's not going to change. And I mean, because I had a little bit of time to think about this, and I thought that again, I guess we go back to the industry chat, but when I was a creative, the job is the same. The job is repetition. So I would get a brief and I would use that brief to come up with ideas for ads. And it would be the same. I would be, it's different briefs, but I would be using those same skills and falling back on the repetition and the comfort of the repetition in order to have good ideas.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And actually, if you think about it, most people are just doing the same things day in, day out in their jobs.
Yeah.
But just with different clients, different briefs, whatever, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I think that is something that's there. And I think what you were saying about, learning how you tell a good story and learning that kind of fundamental principle, that's what gives you confidence as well, right?
Yes,
that's what makes you really confident when you go onto the job, and confident that you can apply it to these 20 different situations.
Yeah.
You've done it a million times. You've learned it from every angle.
Yeah. And that's what I want for my students is that when they do get a job, or as creatives, first of all, you get a placement. When they're given their first brief, they go, like riding a bike, like it clicks into action. They go, I know the process.
Yeah. And it doesn't take the first time, does it? It doesn't take the first time.
It can take so long.
Yeah, it can.
And I think that, especially with students, in the first year, I always say to them, I expect you to be rubbish. I don't expect you to have good advertising ideas. This takes time. And for each of you, it's going to click at different moments. You know, for some of you, it might take till year 3 and then there's a click and they're like, oh, okay, I get it. And I think that the repetition, not only does it allow you to develop that skill, but it allows you to acknowledge that you're going to have bad ideas no matter how good you are. Like, you don't sit there and bash out 10 brilliant ideas, but what it does is I think it allows you to spot the good ones as well. Because you've done it enough times, you're like, okay. And you've also heard, if you've had lots of ideas, you've heard lots of feedback. So you get a sense of, okay, I think I get why this is working. I mean, I did just before summer, I did a freelance job, and they wanted 1 30-second script for an Expedia, an ad for Expedia. And it was a format, like the script, they showed me the work that had been done before, and you kind of had to sort of write it to that format with like a voiceover or whatever. And it was sort of quite a strict way the ad had to be done. And they wanted 1 30-second. And I think that I wrote, I gave them 19 scripts.
Wow. Okay.
And the agency chose 5 out of that 19 to go to client. So I'm doing it. Like, there's repetition in that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true.
And you're doing it because you've
got to be able to produce ideas like that, haven't you? When you're like, even on the spot, you know, if you're in a meeting and it goes south, you're pitching something, you've got to have that like kind of level of skill where you can just pull out 3 more ideas out of the bag.
And we've all had that, haven't we? I mean, I've been in a client meeting and it's gone tits up, and I've literally said to them, give me a few hours and I'll send something over to you. I know what you want now.
Yeah.
And then you get back to your desk and you bash out 3 more ideas for them that are more in tune with what they want.
And you can only do that when you've gone through that process of coming up with really bad ideas. And getting, you know, like, because also there's this element of learning how not to take it personally, right? And if you haven't gone through that repetition and you haven't had 50 of your ideas shot down, it's really difficult to build that kind of thick skin, right? Which you're going to need when you go into the industry.
And actually, I think, like, in any industry, you probably need. But it's funny because that's what I was thinking. I thought exactly what you just said. I think that when you creatively, anyway, when you do the same thing over and over again and you get lots of feedback, and lots of that will be, no, it's not working, go again, try again. What it builds is resilience. And that feeling that you said, that the acceptance that not all my ideas will be brilliant, but some will, as long as I keep going. And then if you can then again take that into your job, that resilience, because you won't survive if you're going to be
everywhere, don't you? Sorry, I cut you right off, but you at work, right? You need it everywhere. That kind of, that attitude of, I'm going to have to keep trying over and over again, and only maybe once or twice will it go through.
And do you know, it's funny because I've been writing for my own thing, some like longer form stuff, and working with a producer. And when the producer gives me feedback, he does this thing where he's like, mate, there's so much good stuff here. I love this bit. I love this bit. There's so much good stuff here. I think, but maybe we need to go in a slightly different direction with this character, and maybe that's not quite working. And he goes, but I love it. And I actually said to him, you don't need to say all that stuff before. like it's cool, just tell me the bits that you don't think are working, we can talk it through. And I thought, actually, that's the difference. Like, he's obviously probably used to working with people who've always written longer form, like TV shows and stuff, and maybe they're much more precious
Yeah.
Whereas I'm like, yeah, what are you saying? What do we need to change? And I'm not, I know that when he says that bit isn't working, he's not saying you're an idiot, you know, or you failed. Like, that's not it. And that's, again, through having that, through repetition, having it happen over and over again. But I do think, like, actually, you know, we have to be really mindful with how we repeat things. Like you say, you change up the brief, you add new challenges to it, you keep it interesting for them, and you make sure that you're not being lazy with it.
Yeah, I think you have to do that for them to actually genuinely learn as well, because if you don't have that variation, they get too comfortable with the repetition as well, don't they?
Yeah.
And
I know that some of the MA students this year, I think they were like, oh, why aren't we doing this and why aren't we doing that? Like, quite early on, we're like, you should be teaching us this and you should be teaching us that. And I said to them, you guys haven't grasped how to have an advertising idea yet.
yeah.
So it wouldn't be right for me to move you on, because what's the point if you're learning things that are nothing to, you know, you like, I'll always do a bit of art direction with them. I'll always do a bit of copywriting. I'll always show them examples from loads of different media and ideas done well in lots of different places. But then we'll always go back to how to have an idea in the first place.
It's so funny, because as you talked about that, it reminded me of this time when I was about a year into boxing. I remember my coach, I think I said something to him about sparring, and he was just sort of like, yeah, you're not going to do that yet. And I was sort of like, oh, why not? And he was like, well, you need to learn the fundamentals. Like, let's not run before you can walk. And he just kept me in the gym, you know, like just learning how to, like, getting fit, getting strong, learning how to lift weights, learning the technique, with, you know, the basic punches, moving my feet, moving my head. And I remember, as a student of the sport, I remember saying to my coach, what, am I not good enough to spar? I think I'll be quite good, you know? And he was like, yeah, you'll spar when I tell you that you're ready to spar, sort of thing. And so I was just like, okay, cool. You know, I didn't really sort of question it too much. But I remember that thought crossed my mind, where I thought to myself, is it because he thinks I'm not doing enough? You know? Does he not think that I'm fit enough or strong enough or my boxing's good enough? Because I thought I was progressing quite well. But then I also realized, you know, that, I mean, I don't actually think I thought too deeply about it at the time. But now when I look back, I completely get it. I totally get why he held me back from it.
Yeah.
If you move on to the next stage too quickly, you can actually lose confidence, you know, and then you can kind of go, well, actually, maybe this is not for me.
And then also, I think, I mean, I don't know, but I imagine sparring is where you're supposed to learn.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you're learning everywhere, really, but absolutely.
Like,
you're learning the conditions of a fight.
Yeah. But if you're not ready for it and it's basically like a car crash, you probably don't learn anything.
No, you don't. You don't.
But yeah, it's difficult, because I think, like, going back to what I said ages ago about these two units that were too similar and involved repetition, and they weren't creative, they weren't practical units. They were, I guess, just not thought out properly enough. And I think, do you remember, I don't think you were in this meeting, but we had like an away day at work, which was about, there's a question on the NSS or in the surveys, was your unit intellectually challenging?
Yeah.
Something like that. And there was a whole away day about how to make the units intellectually challenging. And one of the main things that came out of it was, what does that mean? And if we know what it means, we don't explain what we mean by it to the students. So this is all pointless. Again, like being stuck on surveys and student opinions. And I was telling my friend about it, and she used to teach, and she said, for me, it just means, were you bored?
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah. And she goes, and I think that's what the students are answering. They're not asking, they're not saying, give me, it wasn't intellectually challenging, I need to read more academic literature. They're saying, bloody hell, I was a bit bored.
Yeah. And also, they're not saying this isn't challenging because I'm doing the same thing again and again. Because I think on our course in particular, I think that's what it got attributed to, right? I think this is where the repetition thing came up.
Yeah.
And they said, well, students aren't feeling challenged enough. I don't know how those two things got linked together, but they did.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, I go back to what we said at the start, which is, well, that requires a conversation. I even think I remember doing this where I got into class one day, you know, I got the students to move all the tables. We all sat in a big group in a huddle, half of us on the tables, half of us on the chairs. And we just had a chat about repetition and about, you know, why we do things more than once. And it was really good. It was a really productive discussion. And if anyone had been in that room that had kind of said on the survey, which they probably weren't, like you said, it's probably one or two really vocal people that have said it. And then it's just been taken to the extreme. But, you know, regardless, I think it's healthy to have these kind of conversations with students because it helps set them up, right? It helps set them up with the right kind of attitude and mindset so that when they're going into, you know, the next phase and the next phase, it's going to benefit them.
Yeah.
I just feel like if we're just exposing them to material, like even if I take it outside of a, you know, our course and I say, okay, is repetition valuable or not? I feel like the other side of that is, you know, okay, you just expose them to loads of things, but then is that really teaching?
No.
I feel like that's just, you could just do that online. You can just Google all these things and, you know, find out the basic principles. And then what's the point of us, right? Like we're there to feedback, get them to do it again and then feedback again and then get them to do it again and feedback again. Otherwise, isn't that what teaching is? I don't know. But yeah, I think these are all interesting questions. I was watching a movie the other day and I hadn't seen this movie for about, I don't know, 6-7 years or something. So yeah, I couldn't remember half of it.
Yeah.
But I remembered, you know, the basics and I was watching it and you know what? I completely didn't remember the movie like that. It was totally different to what I remembered the last time I watched it. Because I remember the first time I watched it, I remember thinking, yeah, it's okay, but it's a one-time watch. I probably wouldn't watch it again. But for some reason, it came up and I remember thinking, yeah, I think actually I want to watch that again and see if I still have the same perspective on it.
Yeah.
And okay, fine. That was like a 6-7 year gap. But I think generally, even if you watch a movie and then you watch it again 2 weeks later, which I've done that before too.
Yeah.
I take something different from it every time I watch it. And this came into my mind, you know, when I was thinking, because I knew that I was going to have this conversation with you. And I remember thinking, well, it's the same thing really, isn't it? When you repeat tasks and you do it over and over again, you do take something different from the process each time. It's not like, oh, I'm just doing the same task with the same brief and
to no end.
Work like that.
No, and also I think what's been really interesting for me with the MAs, because I've been looking at some of their portfolios, their creative portfolios, and they have gone back to some of the work that they did right at the beginning of briefs that I set them, and they have changed what they originally presented to me, because you remember some pieces of work, and there might be a thread of what was there originally, but they've taken what they've learned from doing it over and over again over the course of a year, and they've gone back and made some really valuable changes and created really brilliant pieces of work with what they originally had. And it's so nice to see that.
Yeah.
And it's so nice to know that they've gone, oh, let's have a look at what we did in term 1. And then look through that work.
They've waited till the end of the haircut, right? And then they've gone, actually, I see why we had that part in the middle where I thought I've come to the wrong hairdressers, right? Because, it's really, and I think that's good as well, that they have that reflective element of looking back and going, okay, it all adds up now. It all makes sense. I see why this happened that way.
Yeah. But, go on.
No, go on. It's fine.
I think that, I think really we probably don't do a good enough job of telling the students why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think that ultimately causes us problems.
And I think actually, even as I'm thinking about it as you're saying it, I remember, I don't know if you ever did this on your units, but we do this thing where you'd get to the end of the unit and then you go, oh yeah, like we should definitely do this next time, and we should explain it to them this way and all of these things. And then you'd have this big chat at the start of the unit and you'd try and do all of this expectation setting. But I think it's got to happen consistently. It's got to happen like partway through the year as well, because at the beginning it's all hypothetical. So you tell them this stuff, but they've got no context to put it into. And so they're going, oh, okay, yeah, cool, yeah, but like don't really get what you're like.
Yeah, exactly. What you're saying, I'm like, I'm totally overwhelmed by you even telling me what's happening, what's going to happen week by week.
Like telling someone that repetition is really important at the outset isn't really going to solve the problem.
No.
You've got to tell them when they're in the thick of it and they're going, why am I still doing this? Why am I doing it again? That's when you've got to have the chat, right? And you've got to kind of say, well, this is why. And it's really important. And then I guess you kind of need to do the reflective piece as well, where at the end of it all, you go, yeah, I told you so. But no, you get them to kind of look back and go, okay, if you just look back for yourself, I'm pretty sure you'll figure it out, right? You'll see that was useful and that was helpful. It's just you weren't going to see it in the moment.
No, and it's funny because one of my students, when I was talking to them about how students feel about what we're teaching them, she said, I think it would be really good for you. She said, you always show us examples of really good student work. And she goes, and that's brilliant. She goes, but you never show us examples of terrible student work. She goes, you don't show us what those students did when they first started, or, that journey that they took. So they just feel themselves like, oh, I should be doing this brilliant work. But the brilliant work I'm showing them is a 1 year down the line.
Yeah.
And I thought, actually, that is true. Like maybe to show that process more and be really transparent, so students go, oh, I get it. I mean, I heard this creative team did a talk to some students, not our students, some different students, and the subject of the talk was you're SHIT, I'm SHIT, we're all SHIT. And then they just basically showed them rubbish ideas that they'd had. And these weren't old ideas. These were like, this is one we did last week that was terrible. And actually they said they just felt like that was more motivating to the students than showing them like their award-winning work. You just go, look, we're all out here, we're all struggling, we're all trying to have ideas. Not all of our ideas are going to be good. So just keep going.
100%, because people relate to the struggle and they want to see that someone else has gone through what they're going through, right? They don't just want to see all the good stuff because it reminds them of how far away they are from it.
Exactly. I mean, talking about
refreshing. I like that.
Trying to be resilient. And I had a student last year and they showed me something and I was like, I'm just not sure that it works or whatever. And I gave some feedback and the student just went, right, well, this is just not for me. I can't, it's not for me. And I was like, what? That quick? that quickly you just decide it isn't for you. And I think like part of our job is we have students that have come from a world of cross, like a tick and a cross, it's right or it's wrong. And you got an A, you got a B, like that's all the focus is on. And what they really want from us is praise. And when they first show us work, they are just sitting there thinking, please like it, please like it, please like it.
Yeah. And please let it be an A.
Please let it be an A. Yeah. An A plus. Please let it be an A. And we, because we've come from industry, we're like, oh, this is a really good opportunity to make this work better.
Yeah.
So we're all coming in it, they're coming in it from a different angle to us. And only later on, like I feel like the third years and then the MAs, like finally you get to a really sweet spot where it isn't just like a feedback session, it's a conversation. And they're like, oh yeah, I thought about doing it this way, and I looked at these different ways of writing the copy, and I go, oh yeah, that's really interesting, and that one really appeals to me. And but you have to go through that process first. And I think for students, they're like, oh my God, they said something bad. That means I'm not going to get an A. But that's the impossible thing. But yeah, I think for our students, there's that lack of understanding as to why we might repeat things. And there's a lack of resilience.
Yeah, I love this point on resilience. I'm going to come back to it. Another thing to mention is if you're looking for another great education podcast, you should definitely check out Chalk and Talk with Anna Stoke. Anna's a passionate advocate for evidence-based math education for students of all ages. And on her podcast, she talks about everything from effective teaching methods and how-to guides for teaching math facts to tips for evaluating research shows claims. So she brings on top-notch guests, educators, researchers, and policymakers, and she talks about the issues that are directly impacting teachers and students. So Chalk and Talk, you can find it wherever you get your podcasts. It's for anyone that's interested in education. And this show has been brought to you in partnership with Hatchet Learning, who are publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. So if you want to level up your professional development, then go to www.hatchetlearning.com to explore the full range of titles. So I really like this point that you made about resilience, and this thing that you said about how students will show you a piece of work and they'll have this look on their face and this anticipation, and they just want you to tell them that they've nailed it and it's really good.
Yeah.
And it brought me back to a chat that we had offline a few weeks ago. And I remember you were talking about distinguishing between the student and their work. So
Yeah.
if you are saying to a student, this isn't very good, you're not saying you're not very good.
Yeah.
You're just talking about the work.
Yeah.
I think
I know.
that's such an important thing to try and make students realize. But I think we all do it as well, right? We all internalize and go, because we've invested so much time and effort, and we're already imagining the reaction of the person when they're going to see this big reveal of like amazing work that we've done. But
yeah, you're a genius.
yeah, and so when they kind of give you the look to go, okay, and then they do what your mate did, where they go, well, there's some really brilliant ideas here, and there's loads of things that I love about this, and they're just waiting for the but, and then you know. But I think actually I do it the other way around. I try and like just
Hit 'em with the bad stuff
straight away, and then kind of pick them up a little bit afterwards. But
yeah, I think that. So my answer to that, the solve for that, for that feeling, to make that feeling better, is don't have one idea, have 10 ideas.
yeah,
That lessens the blow, right? If you've just spent the whole session doing one idea and then your tutor gives you a load of negative feedback about it, you're devastated. If you sit there and you've got 10 ideas and you're still going, then you realize that it doesn't matter. you can have more. But I also say to the students, like, if you think it's really good, then just keep hold of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Just keep hold of it. Like I could be wrong. Other people could be wrong.
And argue your case a little bit,
Yeah,
that's a skill as well. That's a skill worth developing.
Yeah. And funnily enough, when people do argue their case, sometimes you actually find out what they really wanted to say.
Yeah.
Maybe didn't come across in the work. And you're like, oh, well, that's a brilliant idea, but I don't see it in the work. How can we fix that?
Just got to execute it differently. So same idea, different execution.
Yeah. But it is like I say to students all the time, you are not your work. And I also I think maybe I've put it in a lecture somewhere. It's like, I think that for a lot of creatives, a lot of people anyway, I always done my own writing separate to my advertising writing. And for a long time, I didn't show that to anyone because I didn't want someone to say that was terrible. Like, that was my personal thing. So I always say to students, if there's something that you enjoy, then do it for pleasure and then see this as your job.
Yeah.
So, this is how you earn your money. And also, I'm really nice, and at some point you're going to get a job and there's going to be a client who's, not
isn't going to be that nice. Yeah.
They're not going to be thinking about your feelings. So yeah, for me, it is that thing of, don't just have one idea. Don't put all your eggs in one basket and think, I've cracked it. We've got one idea. And I'm going to show the students this year the brief that I was given for Expedia. And then I'm going to show them the 19, so probably 8 pages worth of scripts.
Yeah.
And go, look, I'm really experienced. I really know what I'm doing. I can really bash it. I can really write these scripts quite well. But I don't know what the client, I mean, I know what the client wants from the brief, but you never really know, do you, Seema, like what a client is going to buy?
Yeah, you don't. Like, you can think going into the meeting that you know which idea they're going to choose or like or dislike, but you just don't really know. They can completely surprise you and throw you off and go, yeah. And then you can see something different in the idea too when they see something different in it. And then you go, oh, yeah, actually, yeah, I get it. And because also things grow on you, things warm on you over time. And also and that includes your own ideas, doesn't it?
Yeah, completely. And I think with this one, they'd said they just wanted one person in it. The client, I think, had said they just wanted one person, but the agency had said, we're not sure about that. So can you give us a mixture? So then it was really important to me that there would be some brilliant scripts that had one person in, and also some brilliant scripts that had two people in. And then for Expedia, they like it to be basically funny, but not that funny.
Yeah.
So then you go, okay, and now I'm watching what's been done before. I'm trying to gauge what's funny, but not too funny. I'm not always going to get that right in every. Some of them might be too funny, or not funny at all. So yeah, I didn't cry over the, well, I don't know, because I can't do maths, 12 scripts that they didn't choose.
Yeah.
I didn't go, what was wrong with each one of those individually?
Yeah. And that is the solve, right? It's have lots of ideas. And the way you're going to have lots of ideas is when you've done it 100 times before.
Yeah.
And I think just as a last point, I was also thinking when you were talking about, them wanting it to be good. And then we were talking about grades, because we know that students are always obsessed with getting an A.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we passed the whole hour without talking about insights, which is the thing that comes up on our course over and over and over again. And it's the one thing that the students take ages to really get. Like, we've called it so many different things, haven't we?
Now I call them human truths.
Okay, let's call them human truths.
Yeah.
So I just think to myself, how would it impact the quality of their big idea assignment, for example, or any other assignment that they hand in? Because nearly all of them have insights.
Yes.
How would it impact their ability to hand in something of good quality and of substance if they weren't doing it over and over and over again? Imagine we just gave it to them once and said, and that's insights. Like, I don't think anyone would graduate. It would be a complete nightmare.
No, that's so true.
And yet it's students that are always saying, oh, we don't want to do it again. We don't want to do it again. But they also want to get an A. But then we also have to recognize that is their inexperience.
Yeah.
That is the place that they're in right now, right? Like, there is a bit of naivety there. They don't understand that if you want to get the A, then you've got to do that particular thing over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we can't just go, okay, yep, we're going to strip repetition out of the whole course and just give it to them once, because that's going to forget the NSS feedback. The actual numbers graduating from the course would go right down, wouldn't they?
Yeah. And we wouldn't be serving them in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, they would just not really know how to do anything.
It's really interesting because, when I come up with these topics for shows, I think about them a little bit and then I just let it go until the show. And because I just kind of want to have a natural conversation and see where it goes. And a lot of the time I'm also figuring out my own thought process around a topic. And then I'm just having the conversation. And but I did think before this show that we were going to have this really balanced conversation about the value of repetition. And I think
know.
it hasn't really been like that. It's been very one-sided, which is very interesting.
I think you asked the wrong. You asked the wrong.
No, well, but I think it's been a really, really interesting discussion. So, Claire, another thing that I always do is I ask guests to prepare like a little 3-minute masterclass.
Yeah.
Did you have a chance to prepare something? I forgot to ask you off air.
Well, no, I did think of something. It's not 3 minutes. It's going to take me like 1 minute.
Oh, that's fine.
So it's
We
about
are over time anyway. So
it's about story. It's about storytelling.
okay.
And I thought a very quick thing for people to learn is about how to tell something that's kind of quite boring and pedestrian. Tell a story that's quite boring and pedestrian, make it interesting. And that was to show a positive in a negative way. So show the negative version of something positive. So if you have, say you have a statement about a brand like Listerine, its mouthwash is so good that you'll hardly ever need to go to the dentist. You know, you won't have any dental problems. Well, to tell that story, that's so dry and boring. And to tell that story in an interesting way, what you do is you show dentists with nothing to do. So you show bored dentists. If you were saying that you had a hand sanitizer that killed 99% of all germs, again, that's a really boring, dry statement. But if you then showed the negative of that and said, that means you never get a day off work because you're never sick, right? So that's the negative. And then another one that I found that I really love, a version of this, is for for a Canadian children's hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And they're asking for people to donate to help make the kids better. And what they've done is they've said the negative of having kids being better is that when kids are well, they're assholes. And it's just really, really lovely. And then, so the whole ad is kids being assholes. And they're assholes because they're better. They feel well. So they can have tantrums and behave really badly. And so what you do, if you do that for your storytelling, so if you take a brand statement, a brand message, anything that's positive, but on the boring side, find who suffers because of it being positive. Or find a negative to that positive and show that as your storytelling. People will still get the positive message, but your engagement will be higher and you'll be more entertaining. And that's my little 3-minute lesson.
Love it. Thanks, Claire. Well, thanks for joining us. This was a really good chat. I enjoyed it and hope you did too. And hopefully everyone else did as well.
Brilliant. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Night.
Outstanding, a world-class vision, a world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.